Hi,
Hello,
and welcome.
we're your hosts,
I'm Alix.
and I'm Kat.
You found the two PFFs you didn't know you needed, but you're glad you have.
Congratulations, you have found your people.
Enjoy the ride as we navigate what it's like to
Live out loud.
Hi,
Hey,
how's it going?
good, how are you?
It's good. It's a Monday, and that's all it is.
It is what it is. You need to be
It
wearing
is.
that shirt today. It is what it is, and what it is ain't great. You need
Yeah,
to be wearing that shirt today.
I know. I wore it over the weekend, but it's starting to feel like it should have been today, but that's okay. I had a great start to the morning. Like
Good.
everything was going fine. We're just struggling with this, whole recording setup, I was doing great and now I'm not. So it's okay.
It happens.
It happened. It happens to
It's
the
okay.
best of us. But anyway, it's a new month. We're 6 months into the year, which is crazy. And it's already like almost midway through July.
I
Which,
can't believe that, actually.
no, I can't either. It's unfathomable to say the least. So, but we're here, and I think we've been doing this for like 3 months now, where we have a like normal quote unquote episode and then our goals episode. So this
Yep.
is our normal episode. So if you're new here, welcome. If you're not, thanks for being here.
Yes.
And continue to share.
And also, if you're new, thanks for being here, along
Also
with your.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's important that they're here too. We're
Yes.
great that you're here.
Yes.
And if you haven't already, please like, share, follow us on all the social medias. I'm currently in the process of a website, so that
Hallelujah.
will be in the works sooner, hopefully, rather than later.
Yes. Yes. That has been that's been in the works for months and months now, right? Like we're finally just like getting it off the ground. Praise be
Yeah.
to Alix, because while I bring a lot of brain and compassion and voice, my girl Alix does everything technical, and I don't know how to create a website. So I'm just like, yeah, that looks good. Yeah, I'll post for that picture.
Yep.
And once it's up and running, like I'll write some great stuff for it. Like
Yeah. Hey, that's okay. Everything works well because people have strengths
great
in
gifts,
different
great.
ways.
Yes, yes.
So it's all good in the hood. Yeah, this website will be what it'll be. The pictures are from October of last year in full transparency. So we'll have to do some new photos here soon. So
Because we both look wildly, in a way, different than we did in October.
yeah, I think we're much happier, and physically we just look a lot different. So I definitely have I don't know, my hair's grown a lot since like I bet you like several inches on both for
Yeah.
both of us. So we're crushing it over here, and we'll just have to take pictures again in October and update the website. So
There you go. There you go.
but without further ado, we'll quit our ramblings and get into today's episode. This episode today, dreams, stories we tell ourselves, things that we thought we could never do. This kind of thought of this episode came about. I was driving around the other day and thinking about doing something. It was something simple, oh, these sunflowers off of this highway look really pretty. It's a massive field of sunflowers. I want to frolic in said sunflowers, but somebody's going to see me take pictures or dance around or do something silly, and
Right.
my brain immediately was somebody's gonna stop and be like, oh my gosh, influencer in the wild, get a life. And it prevented me from that probably 4 or 5 minutes of happiness where I could have just pulled over, took a picture or two, not gave a crap what anyone else thought, and moved on with my life and been happier, healthier, and in much
Yes.
better position. But instead, I chose like to completely do the opposite and not partake in the sunflowers. And of course, like legally, there I'm sure I shouldn't have done that or couldn't have done that. But my brain first was, what would everyone else think or
Mhm.
do or
Mhm.
say to prevent me from doing that thing? And so
Mhm.
that's kind of where the thought process or like the heart of this episode is coming
Mhm.
from, and how that kind of translates into like bigger dreams and bigger decisions that we make in our life.
You know, I have so many thoughts on just that. If you dial into that one scenario in particular, right? It's like, it seems so small, right? It's like, I just want to spend a few minutes like frolicking in sunflowers, right? And in the grand scheme of your life, yeah, it's a small thing, but it's actually much deeper and bigger, which is what we're getting into, in that you should have just done the dang thing because it would have brought
Right.
you happiness, right? And it wouldn't have hurt anybody else, right? And I'm a big
Yeah.
proponent of you do you as long as it doesn't hurt yourself or hurt others, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And so, but I was actually having this conversation. I've had it a lot lately, actually, with friends and with children, because I'm in the teenage years, man. But I I have so many thoughts. One is, I think that with age, which I just want to throw that out there too, is like I used to be so scared of age, right? Like I used to be so scared of 30s, 40s, whatever. But like the older that I'm getting, the less and less I care
Mm.
about the opinions of other people, and care very much about what I think and what
Right.
I feel. And when I look back on the things that I regret in my life, it's because I allowed the opinions of others to influence my actions that snowballed into some of the places that I'm in now, instead
Right.
of just following what I wanted to do and what I felt at that time, right? And there's so much that encompasses that, like religious, like stronghold stuff, right? Like just opinions of your family. And I mean, there's so many things we could unpack over several episodes. But I think number one, with age, like you really like start to care less and less and less of what
Mm.
people think about you. But two is that no one else is going to remember something that doesn't affect them,
Right.
you know? So it's like, if you wanted to run through sunflowers, people might look for 3 seconds and go, what an idiot, right? I mean,
Right.
okay, but after they drive past that, it's not going to be something they remember 5 minutes, 10 years, whatever from now, that they saw some girl randomly one day running through sunflowers.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
it would have been a lasting memory for you, and is, but in a different way.
Yep.
It's kind of like wearing the swimsuit. You know, we talked about that before in other episodes. It's like,
Hmm.
get in the dang swimsuit,
Right.
right? Wear the tank top. No one cares but you
Right.
what your arms look like, or what your body looks like in a swimsuit. But we get so caught up in what everybody else is thinking, and honestly, unless it affects their life in some way, most people aren't thinking anything about you.
No.
Maybe for a
True.
split second, and then it's over.
Right. 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 We spend like so much of our lives worried
Mhm.
about the opinions of others
Mhm.
when their opinion is only reflectant on their life.
Theirs, not yours. That's right.
Exactly.
Yep. And it seems menial, right? It seems like, well, okay, great, girls. Well, I'll just stop caring what other people think about me. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But when you start thinking about it in terms of like we're talking about today, about dreams in our lives or goals in our lives that we have put off or set aside, or like given up on completely, right?
Right.
Or not done in the full-fledged, open-hearted way that we wanted to, because of the opinions and words and thoughts of other people, that then it becomes this bigger thing. right?
Right.
I was explaining that to my son yesterday. It's like, you care too much about what this person thinks about you. Like, why do you need their approval? I need to understand why you need their approval, because you don't need their approval. Like, you need to live your life in the way that makes you happy and fulfilled, and even down to the small things. Because what happens is we take on the words from this person, and the words from this person, and the words from this person, and it starts to build and build and build until finally those voices are so loud that we can't hear our own, right?
Right.
And we often get so confused about, who are we listening to, what is happening, and that can create years and years and years and years and years of muck and grime, that when we eventually go, oh, we shouldn't be listening to people, we have to unpack all that, which takes more time before we can
Mhm.
finally move forward and fulfill our dreams and our goals, right?
Right.
And sometimes some of those dreams and goals, you wake up and you're like, I'm too old to do that now. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's kind of all my
No,
thoughts right in my head.
no, I mean, that's 100% like like I'm at the point now where I'm like looking back and like the opinion I'm reevaluating like, oh, like this goal, this dream of mine, like I think I talked about it on the podcast. I know you and I have talked about it one off. So I have a feeling it wasn't all on the podcast. Like when I was in 6th grade, I wanted to submit into a recipe competition at school for
Mm-hmm.
my recipe to be featured in the cafeteria for a week.
Right.
And it was $5 to enter. I had a recipe. I was super excited about it.
Uh-huh.
But my parents were in Africa, and I was staying with my grandparents who have since passed, and or at least my grandpa in this case scenario. And he said, who ironically he worked in food distribution for Cisco, and he said, he's like, you can never make money in that industry. I was in 6th grade.
6th grade.
All I was doing at that point in time in my life was messing around in a kid's cookbook, learning to like I was at the age where my mom was like, you can cook your own food, like when my
Yes.
dad was working, like you make your own dinner, like you do your own thing. And so I was playing around in this kid's cookbook, and I had cooked something enough that I felt confident that
Confident.
the rest of my like classmates would enjoy and like I'd probably win.
Yeah.
And he was like, there's no money in that or whatever. And that shows like his age group or whatever.
Right,
But
right.
in that moment, like that dream died, and it
Died.
never resurrected ever again until like now I'm almost 30, and I'm like reevaluating, okay, like where did I okay, this was something I wanted to do. This is something I wanted to do. Why did I stop? And almost every single one of them were based on the opinions of someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a lot to unpack
Mm-hmm.
at now 28, being like, well, shoot, like how much time have I wasted? Not a lot. I have so much life to live. Like I'm still so young. Like
Yes.
you look at all the people who have achieved things and whatever, and they're, older, whatever. And like it puts a little bit of perspective on you, but it's like, how much further could I have been had I A, not listened, B, had somebody in my life tell me to tell the other person, wow, there's balloons flying, to like screw off, like whatever. Like
Right.
I didn't have that. And like I told that story to you. I told it to my parents a couple of weeks prior to that. My mom and dad had never heard that story. They had no idea. They thought, this whole cooking thing was like a hobby. And so for the last several weeks, I have been pursuing that to see if that's something I want to do with the rest of my life. So I think it ties in perfectly to what you're saying. It's like the medial, like the temporary frustration or temporary like ick, I think is a good way to describe all of those feelings, is so much more important to push through than
Yeah.
the lifetime of like wondering what if I would have done that. Because I guarantee you, if my grandfather was still living to this day, he would have no memory of that.
Mm-mm.
None. He
Mm-mm.
was just in the car. I can visually, like, I know exactly where I was sitting. I know exactly what car I was in. I know exactly where we were in the neighborhood when I got the courage to pull out the little slip. out of my backpack and show it to him. Like,
Yeah.
he would probably have no memory of that. And my
No.
grandpa was the best. Like, he was
Right.
great. He was just stubborn and didn't like spending money. And so it was like, oh, I deal with, chefs all the time. They don't make any money. Well, who said I wanted to make money? Like, that wasn't
Right.
my why. It was
Right.
because I love to do it. And so I think, yeah, it's easy to say like, oh, screw everyone else's opinion. Literally this morning, I'm driving around like worried. I'm creating this TikTok and I'm nervous that like somebody's going to see me videoing myself in public. Like, who the heck cares?
It was
But
adorable.
that was so much fun. It brought me so much joy. Now, if I
It
only
brought
I
me
could do it
joy.
for the if only I could do it for the podcast. Here we are. And I think that's just the irony of everything. But
Yes.
we can
Yeah,
sit here all
like it's like most people that say things like that, right? Like your grandfather didn't have ill intent.
no.
Right? Like he said it one off mainly because he didn't want to waste $5, right? And that to him was, well, that's going to be a waste because I don't want to encourage this because there's no money in it. She needs to have a new passion and a new thing that she wants to do and not this, right? I mean,
Right.
like my grandfather, I work in insurance, right? And I've worked in insurance for almost a decade. And when I first got, it was my first, not my first big girl job, but like my first job, like after I finally got a degree and like was making like actual real money.
Yeah.
And, I remember him, I remember him asking me several times, like, how's work? And I'm like, well, it's fine. It's not my dream, but it's, it pays the bills. And he's like, it's a good job and it pays well and it gives you benefits. And, you don't just walk away from that, and it's that era, right? I mean, and I understand it because it's what they grew up in and they want, the intent is security, right? The intent is these girls that we care about, we want them to be secure because we won't always be here if our grandfathers have passed, right? We won't always be here to support them if they need it. We won't always be here to take care of them if they need it. We want them to be secure, right? Not off trying to be an actress, not off trying to be a chef. We want them to have secure jobs where they can take care of themselves, not rely on a man. Right? Like, I mean, that's really the bottom line.
Yep.
And God bless us. But as parents, it's like I know that I have said things to my children that are going to last with them, and I am offering to pay their therapy bills because I know that I have said things that the intent was good.
Right.
Delivery and how it was received are probably not good, and so who knows what dreams I have crushed already, okay? And they're only 13, 9, and 3. All right. I mean, I had probably dream crushed some things, okay? Unintentionally. And I think that's what it really comes to is that, yes, there are people, especially people we care about, in our society today, we get a lot of opinions from people that we don't give two craps about, right? It's like people on the internet, people, whatever. Like there's a lot of people that like want to have an opinion about your life, but unless you pour into my life and you're significant in some way, you don't get a voice, right?
Right.
I think that what really, really gets to us, because I think most of us, if we said, okay, we can do it without, we'll just stop reading the comments, right? We can do without the internet chatter, right? But it's when we get down to the people that matter to us.
Right.
Our grandparents, sometimes our parents, if you had good parents, your friends, your mentors, those words, right? Those words are the ones that can make or break our dreams and visions and spirit, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a twofold thing there. One is we got to be very careful, and I've heard this all my life, and I say it a lot now. We've got to be very careful who has the authority to speak anything in and over my life.
Yeah, that's good.
Not everybody gets that seat, right? And the other thing is we have to be careful as friends, as mentors, as parents, as leaders in the positions that we hold in other people's lives and what we're speaking over them. Because while we might not think that the dream is a good idea, you don't have to live that thing out.
Right.
Unless we can see that there's some physical danger, right? Like I've worked with that person before, Alix, and they're going to harm you, right? Like unless that is something that is happening, yes, as a good friend, you need to say things like that, right?
Right.
But unless it's going to harm that person, your only role should be in support.
100%.
Asking lots of questions. Hey, how are you going to pay the bills? How are you going to, work out the time? Is there anything I can do to support you as you make this transition, as you chase this dream? Because asking
Absolutely.
questions gets us thinking, oh, have I thought about that? Have I thought about that? Oh, they're not saying I can't do it. They're saying make sure that all the pieces are in place so while you're chasing it and it gets hard, you've already got all the support blocks, right? You don't have to worry about the roadblocks because you've already figured out a way around it, right?
Exactly.
And I think that we miss that in our society way too much. We don't ask enough questions. We give too many opinions.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think the internet has given way to like allowing the
Mhm.
opinions to infiltrate.
Yes.
And I mean, it was even bad like prior to the internet, but I feel like it's just heightened now, especially with like
Mhm.
strangers, like people who think they're close to you in the
Yeah.
past, like would share their opinion, but now it's like random people are like, you feel like you should be wearing that in public, and you're like, I'm never gonna see you like you are literally a they call them NPCs in video games, like a non-playable character in
Right.
my life.
Right.
You I saw at the post office, you who I saw walking down the aisle at the grocery store, who
Yes.
felt like they had the wherewithal to say, hey, do you really think you should wear that in public? Or hey, do you really think you should buy that piece of produce? Like, you are an NPC in my life, and like
Mhm.
your opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of people in this world, and I hope there's somebody listening to the podcast who hasn't been told, like, hey, like, you have to be aware of the people that you let have authority over your life, because if you let that key, if you give that key to everyone, you will be miserable forever, and
Yes.
no one will understand why you're miserable, because it's such a passive thing that happens, that
Mhm.
you let people's opinions like weigh you down and keep you from growing, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden you're 50, 60 and you're wondering like, or 30, 40 and wondering like, what the heck, where'd my life go, because you
Mhm.
spent your whole life letting people's opinions keep you from doing small things, big
Yes.
things,
Yes.
throughout your life.
Well,
Like
and one of the things that I really I hope that this like helps someone, like, because even people in our lives that we think matter,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, so growing up, I grew up in church, grew up in a very Pentecostal, charismatic environment. And for those that are not familiar, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? People have lots of opinions, okay? And they wrap it up in a word from God. They wrap it up in prophecy. They wrap it up in, you know, this proclamation over your life. Now, what you learn as an adult and you unpack all of that is they didn't have any authority in their own lives, right? Their lives were a dumpster fire, but they were telling you what God wanted for your life,
Right.
right? And now I'm not saying that prophecy isn't real. I truly believe that it is. And I'm not saying that some of those things aren't true and authentic and good, because they are, okay? But I can just say from personal experience that I walked under the weight of some of those so-called proclamations
Yep.
for years. I
Yep.
made lifelong decisions
Yep.
because of those proclamations.
Yep.
And one of the people that gave me a proclamation was the pastor who was coincidentally running around on his wife. Okay. We all have sin. We all have crap. This is not coming from a place of judging the man. This isn't coming from a place of judging the people. It's just to give an example that even the people that you think should have authority over your life,
Yeah.
you got to be solid enough in who you are. And if you are not, I told this to my teenagers this week, if you are not solid enough in who you are, to know what you like and what you don't, to know what you believe and what you don't, to know what you truly think and want out of your life, then you can't listen to anyone else until you figure that out. Because if somebody comes up to you and says, I've got a word from the Lord for you,
Yep.
okay, and you're like, okay, well, what is that? And it's something completely off the wall that doesn't align with A, scripture, B, anything that has to do with your life or what you feel already called to do, because we all have purpose, right? We all
Right.
have purpose and calling. We call it different things based on what our beliefs are, but we all have purpose, right?
Right.
And if that thing doesn't line up with, or someone's opinion doesn't line up with what you truly feel, because you've done the work on you, what you
Right.
truly feel is the purpose for your life and your dream and your calling and intention, then it's not for you. They didn't hear right. They misspoke. Nothing. It doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be. It just means that that's not accepted for you.
Right.
But on the flip side, if you know and you know and you know, and then someone who you trust to let them speak into your life says, I really think that you're on the right path, that this is this and this is this and this is this, and it lines up with everything you already know, that is beautiful and wonderful and incredible, because we need that kind of encouragement, right? I pride
100%.
myself on being a hype girl, right? Like, people need encouragement, right?
Truly.
They need it.
Truly. I like literally cut the tape, end it now, like we're good. Like that's so good. Like it's not from a place of judgment at all. Like, and
None.
I personally have also experienced it, and like that's what I'm going, like I'm literally looking through those journals where I've
Mhm.
written down
Yeah.
what people have prayed into my life, and like I've made like catastrophic seems like a little intense, but like I have made like life altering
Right.
decisions based off of like the words of other people because they claimed it's from the Lord. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that they weren't, but I completely like double check mark like what you just said, like, and I feel like it needs to be repeated. Like, if that person does not have authority in your life, take it for what it is, grain of salt, thank you, received, like, I'm moving on from it.
Mhm.
However, comma, if it's come from somebody in your life and it reiterates what you believe is who you are, then
Mhm.
like, heck yeah, like run with it, like keep
Yes.
chasing it.
Yes.
And it's so important. It's so like I had a deep conversation with a friend about like we went through a similar thing with our marriages where people in the church told us not to continue to pursue that relationship, who had no grounds for both of us, and like we're now married to those people and like happy and
Mhm.
whatever. And I just
Same.
like think back, if I would have just listened, and
Mhm.
like what would I be doing right now, and like they weren't right. They didn't have authority in my life.
Mhm.
But because a lot of people use the guise of religion and
Yes.
prophecy to
Mhm.
make opinions, much like the ladies in the grocery store and the post office do.
Yes.
But it's almost more received, quote unquote, because it's
Yes.
in the space of the church, which is really
Right.
sad. But
Because it seems to be like some sort of extra authority, right? And if they don't have extra authority, they'll find some, right?
right,
And
absolutely.
you talk about judgment in the grocery store, and I just giggle because you 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 can face judgment in the grocery store, and then you can be a mother and face judgment in the grocery store. And those are two very different things. I mean, because I've received both, and let me tell you that you haven't lived until you've been in a crowded grocery store and you're hot and sweaty because Georgia and we live in Satan's kitchen, and you have a toddler who's having a meltdown, and all you want to do is get out of there and pay for your groceries, and the little old ladies want to look at you like you have completely failed and like CPS should take away your children. I mean, that's like next level judgment, and
True.
it's like, if you care, like, I just want to speak to the mamas for a second, because if you care what other people think about you, you're never gonna make it through motherhood. You're
True.
never gonna make it through motherhood. You need to get you some girls and some women, some wise women that have walked ahead of you, in motherhood. You need to get you some ones that are walking alongside of you in motherhood, and some trusted ones, okay? And listen to them, because you're gonna need the advice, you're gonna need the encouragement and the support. And everybody else, they can go pound sand, kick rocks with sandals on, okay? I mean, for real.
For real, for real.
For
For
real, for
real, for real. I think it's so true. And some practicals for our listeners as like we kind of wrap up, like I think the best way to continue to push through the things that you want to do in your life, big or small.
Yes.
Dancing in a sunflower field, taking pictures, or pursuing a career change. Whatever like end of the spectrum you're on, I think the best advice I have from the little life I have lived and like working through it myself now, write it down.
Yes.
Write it down. Like I hate journaling. I hate it because I can't sit still long enough to like get my thoughts out. I need to just start like voice memoing myself, and I probably would feel a lot better. Or just typing it out on my phone, whatever.
Yeah.
Write it down. Write what those things you want to do, the like social media posts you want to make that seem like kind of far stretched, or the career changes, or like something that can coincide with the career that is stable and making you money, whatever.
Yes.
Write it down. Secondly, don't be afraid to take risks. Like just take the step that it takes to get to that point. Okay, like practical. I want to dance in a sunflower field. Okay, step 1, find a field. Okay, check. Now figure out, make a plan for that field. Okay, like I'm going to pull off and like do this, and like just do it, because the relief you will feel once it's done will help you take the bigger risk later on. Like,
yes.
Oh, I want to walk every single day, but it rains where I'm from and I don't like walking in the rain. Okay, walk in the rain one time and tell me something else, because like it's not a good enough excuse to not do that thing. Like, stop it. Kind of talking to myself there. And then like 3, find your people. I feel like
Yes.
that's our like go to on the pod, but like
it's so true.
But it's so true. I did this in marriage counseling, and I think it's applicable. We wrote down our like our table of influence, our circle of influence. I think we also did it in like a study that you and I did, Kat. But like your sphere of influence, who's at your table? Who's that 12 people? I think it's 12. Maybe it's 6. I can't remember.
It's more than 6, but it's a number, yeah.
Yeah, 10, 12, whatever. No more than 15. How about that? So like write down those people that are closest to you that you trust. You'll be surprised either A, how quickly you fill up that table, and 2, how quickly you exchange names, because you think of somebody else who you may not be in contact with daily that is more of like an authority in your life that you can trust. And like slowly peeling back those layers to like finding out who that true circle is, and then that kind of exterior sphere. And then if you still feel like that table's not big enough or like strong enough, take risks and like go spend some time at a coffee shop, talk to your family, like find out how you can get those people in your life, so that you can continue to fulfill your dreams and your passions.
100%.
So good. That is all I have for us today.
And that is enough, okay? Because we need to be reminded that our dreams are not too much, that our goals are not too much, right? That they're just enough, and that we are enough to fulfill all of those, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important, like, get the right people in your corner. No hate to the people that you need to get out of your circle, but just, peace and love, right? But like, this just isn't for me, and you need to go find your people too. You're released to go do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is so, so important, because you need to be reminded on a daily basis that you are not too much.
Not too much.
You're not too little.
Not too little.
You are just enough.
Just enough.